Was his first major press conference as president. François Hollande at the outset admitting the country faces a very serious situation, those his words, but defending reforms that have sometimes surprised his own left-wing camp, raising some taxes, agreeing to deficit cutting, and promising a turnaround. Beyond the substance, there's also the style. On the campaign trail, he promised a, quote, normal presidency, a way to distance himself from a predecessor, Nicolas Sarkozy, who voters sometimes found too frenetic, not regalian enough in a country where citizens expect their president to be above the fray. Hollande, though, has also proved unconventional. Critics would even say hard to pin down. They point to his marital status, unwed, Valérie Trierweiler instead bearing the title of France's first partner. More importantly, the campaign is long over, and as France flirts with the tipping point into recession, as partners such as Germany call for more reform, can Hollande reverse his sliding popularity? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at Hollande facing the press. And with us to talk about it, Socialist Member of Parliament Valérie Rabault, Vice Chair of the National Assembly's Finance Committee. Thanks for being with us. Also with us, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, columnist with Le Plus, the Nouvel Observateur's interactive website, and Craig Capidis, correspondent at large for Quartz, the Atlantic Monthly's business website. And joining us from London, public relations consultant Felix Marquardt. Thank you for being with us. You're the founder
Thank you for having me.
Atlantic Dinners, the France 24 debate, where you can always join our dinner conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find us at François F24. By the way, Felix Marquardt, I know that you and some of your friends a while back caused a stir with a website entitled Barrez-vous, which I guess you could loosely translate it as beat it while you can, a sort of tongue-in-cheek manifesto to young French people to flee what you describe as an anachronistic gerontocracy. Felix, was this press conference enough to convince you to run home?
Well, in many ways, I would argue that and I'm not the only one, that the channel is as broad as the Atlantic. It wouldn't be that easy to come back, although I will be coming back tomorrow. No, it hasn't convinced me to change my tune for the moment. What I hear clearly is a change in rhetoric, but I do also hear an unwillingness to admit that there's been a change in rhetoric. There's a lot being said about the borrowing costs, of France. The fact is that the borrowing costs of France today are completely artificial. This is mechanic. The fact is that France is lumped together with Germany, and so benefits from the fact that people are trusting Germany. The second, paradoxically, the second Spain's crisis is sort of headed towards a solution. The mechanical effect there will be that France will cease to be lumped together with Germany, and that could have a very strong impact on its borrowing costs, and an impact that right now, in terms of budget, would be just a total catastrophe. I am pleased to see that, I'm pleased to hear more realism from François Hollande than I heard before. I think there is a gap between the sort of the realizations on the one hand, and the tools and the weapons that we are told are going to be used to confront the situation, which is indeed dire.
Let's before we answer those points, let's listen to what he had to say. The press conference, which by the way began with a 41-minute speech, the president with some blunt talk, as Felix Marquardt was mentioning.
Politics is not an accumulation of proposals or measures, strong as they may be. It is not a laundry list of reforms, useful as they may be. It is not even a chalkboard of promises, kept as they may be. Politics is a consistent and strong answer to the situation of the country. And what is the situation? It is a very serious one.
La situation est grave, a very serious situation. Valérie Rabault, you heard what Felix Marquardt said a minute ago. On the one hand, he thumbs up for admitting so much, but perhaps perhaps not painting a dark enough picture. Félix Marquardt saying that Spain could drag France down even.
I would be first I would like to have a word. It's very easy to travel to cross the channel. I used to spend a few years in London. So to come back to Paris, it's very easy. I would like to reassure Philippe, I think is his name. So to come back to François Hollande, what he said this afternoon, I think it was a very strong speech he delivered today to the French people, based actually on three maybe drivers. I would say the first one is that what we've seen today is really a presidential person. This is he has a driver, he has a cap, he knows where he wants France to go. And I think it's it's a key answer to what was said about there is no direction, etc.
Right, he promised that there would be 60 billion euros in belt tightening over his 5-year mandate.
50.
He said 60, up to 12 billion a year is what he said.
10 billion a year.
Well,
10 billion.
At one point he said 60. And he even said 12. But has he...
50 would already be great.
With what he's put on the table so far, can he get there?
So far, we put on the table 10 billion this year. And it's the details on where there will be some reduction. It has never been made in France. Never. Last year, we end up with public expenses at 56% of GDP, which is the highest level ever. So what we've done for this year, there has been a very clear plan to where we would like to reduce expenses on a clever way. Remember, previously there was 1 out of 2 people taking retirement that would not be replaced. This was what has been made by the previous government. And there has been no result in terms of public expenses because today we are at 56. So what has been decided for this year, 10 billions. It's a very clear plan. There has been some very key administration identified to know where we would end up with the 10 billion this year.
All right.
And this is for the expenses part. Right.
So it's 4/5 of the way to go, according to your calculation. Craig Capitas, are we really on the brink, the way Félix Marquardt was describing, or can the French tighten their belts?
I'll take the middle ground. First, I thought we were going to a press conference, not a speech by François Mitterrand's son, or perhaps Leonid Brezhnev's heir, that goes on and on and on.
François Mitterrand's son, is it a compliment from you? It's a compliment. Thank you.
Well, fine. I thought it was a press conference and not a speech. Anyone who hopes to get into politics or into journalism, what you saw tonight is not how to write a political speech and certainly not how to give a press conference.
It's the French way. Pompidou did the same thing in 69.
20 minutes speech.
Don't pettifog me, folks.
And then 1 hour and a half discussion.
I counted 41.
The point of the exercise, if he did want to give a speech in front of a press conference, he was dealing with some very complicated economic issues.
And France has not balanced its budget since the 1970s.
Well, that's correct, and it also is looking at labor costs rising over 19% over the past decade, and margins, the corporate margins, dropping 40% as Germany's go up 40% over the same period. But let's put the numbers aside. If he was giving a speech tonight, whether you listen to the speech in English or French, it was a technocratic speech that did not communicate. He was not telling his story. He was not telling his narrative. Do you actually believe for one moment, Francois, that the unfortunate people who are no longer working online at Peugeot, who are out of work, actually understood what he was talking about tonight? François Hollande is not a communicator, regardless of whether you support him or don't support him. It was an abysmal speech. It was an abysmal press conference. And if people believe that he got his ideas across tonight, well, then I don't know what you guys have been smoking, because he did not.
Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet.
I think it did good. I think he did good. He did good for François Hollande. He did better than what he did previously.
Well, that's the French people.
He's
he has to
appalling on
concern
TV. He's
himself
very
with.
bad on TV. He did well at the press conference. He was presidential. He was taking the questions easily, answering to them easily. He had kind of a martial look. His voice was lower, not going into the high pitches like he does during his public performances. He was more
France
controlled.
is on the edge of abyss, and we're discussing the pitch in François Hollande's voice.
Yes, he's controlling his voice. He was taking the
This is a
job
wonderful
seriously.
example.
He did well, considering all that I said. He did well.
Well,
it was
I'd
a good
like to see
performance
how
for
many
him.
people,
It's the
who
first tape,
listened to his,
and there is a
his
learning
speech
curve.
in French actually understood the narrative that that he was telling. And as far as the gentleman who is in London, I repeat, which we may have discussed a few weeks ago. Last month, Libération ran an op-ed, François Hollande's tub-thumping newspaper, urging all of France's young people to leave for England immediately. The situation here,
not to England.
or
not
anywhere.
to England. Anywhere.
Anywhere. You're right.
Anywhere.
Excuse me. The point of this is that, and again, I want to put
I don't
politics
think that
aside
for the
here. I
young to
want to
leave
put
France is the
politics
best way to
aside.
fight
If
gerontocracy.
you put politics aside, France is in very dire straits.
Yeah, but he said that.
And François Hollande's speech tonight did not tell the
No,
narrative.
that's not true. He told that he acknowledged the fact that it was a dire situation.
Valérie Rabault
Yes,
and then
I would
Félix
like
Marquardt.
I would like to come back on what was the purpose of his speech today. It was to reaffirm the direction the government and François Hollande are going to take or are taking today. And I think if we agree on this target together, I think this target has been met today because he has re-explained where we want to go, where we are, what is the situation, and what are the means to reach the targets. I think if we agree on this target for the speech today, I think this target has been met.
All right, let's look at the task at hand. Going into the press conference, François Hollande's job approval rating for the first time stabilizing, but this after a continuous slide since election day from 56% to 41%. Now, Félix Marquardt, your day job is as a public relations consultant. What advice would you give François Hollande?
Well, I mean, God, there's so much. It's the thing is, this is not about image. This is about making changes that are going to be more than, this is not about spin. This is not about cosmetics. This is about changing the trajectory of this country. And when I see that there is such an unwillingness, again, to to admit that there needs to be a shock of competitiveness. When I see the unwillingness to admit that there is a change in course, there's so much time spent here explaining that actually I'm changing but not changing. I find it extremely scary. We're talking about
the most important thing, what he says or what he does. I mean, okay, there is a gap between what he says and what he does. Obviously, this is an austerity budget. Obviously,
well, that's the point.
They are taking austerity measures. They don't exactly say that, but they
no, but
do
the problem
it.
Is
what
right
is
now,
the most important thing? That they do it or
the
that they say
problem is
it?
right now. Right now, I hear the talk.
When you
Okay,
raise
they're by the way,
Not everyone,
Félix-
not all at once. Félix Marquardt, go ahead.
I see someone who's talking the talk, not walking the walk. And for the moment, it's just talk.
They are taking the most dramatic austerity
I'm really
measures.
sorry with Félix. I'm really sorry because I think it's unfair what you said. He said, François Hollande, at the beginning of his speech, said there is one goal on which I would like to be judged. This is the decrease in unemployment. So we will see in 1 year.
Scheduled to rise to 10.2%.
Yes.
Restore
But that's
growth
what
in-
every.
No,
I'm
but
sorry,
this was
excuse me.
the first-
One
the
of the
first-
reasons
the
that
first
we wrote
target
this
was
column. Sorry, one of the
unemployment.
reasons we wrote this column 2 months ago was because we have had now people in power in France for 30 years who have all made it one of their main targets to change the unemployment figures, especially those of the young. And they haven't changed diddly squat.
Sorry.
I-
Remember, Lionel Jospin has reduced the unemployment in France. Look back at the figures.
Lionel Jospin was surfing growth.
He was not surfing growth. When he
Yes, he
started,
was. Yes,
in
he
1997,
I don't say
Yes,
that
he
going
was.
to London is going to help, Felix.
May I try and bring
That's beside the point.
clarity?
Wait, this
so
is
how
not
do you
about
explain
moving
that
to
the
London.
growth, the
This is
growth
not
in
This
about
is not
France-
moving to
moving.
London.
This is not
The-
about
the
moving to
growth-
London.
the-
This
the
is
growth-
about. This is about seizing opportunities, seeing that the world.
If each time
that
you
the
disagree with the
horizons of
government, you
French
leave your
youths
country, we
don't
will have to
start-
leave
don't
anytime.
begin and
I mean,
end
it's impossible
at the border.
stance. You can't say that anytime you disagree with government, you just leave the country and say that's not the way
I'm sorry,
to,
that's not
to
what
deal
I'm
with
saying.
political issues.
I'm sorry, that is not what
And
we
they
said.
are trying hard, and the austerity measures are dire. I mean, they are taking austerity measures that are unprecedented in France. Everybody will suffer from that measures. Everybody. So
Okay,
obviously they
this
should.
is-
Obviously
I'm
they
sorry.
should say.
Compared
They should
to
say
the
that
Hartz
there are
reforms,
obvious austerity
compared
measures.
to
They
the
should
Hartz
say that. They
reforms of
should
Mr.
acknowledge
Schröder,
it. But they do it.
compared to the Hartz reforms of Mr. Schröder, this is cosmetics.
No, this is
Craig
not true.
Capidis,
You can
Craig
call
Capidis.
that
you
cosmetics.
can't say that 30 billion are cosmetic.
No,
I'm
this is not
sorry.
true.
I'm sorry.
For the
This is
middle
not
class,
true.
It's
and
about
this
the
is
way.
desire.
It's about the way you save this money.
2013 will be a very tough year.
Time out to the francophones. All three of you are touching upon what's really the most important question here, which I do not believe the French have ever seriously addressed. While Monsieur Hollande was preparing his press conference speech down in Dubai, the World Economic Forum had their global agenda meeting, which is the meeting that sets up the things that are going to be discussed at the January meeting in Davos. For 5 or 6 years, I had the opportunity to participate in this global agenda conference, and I follow it very closely. And this afternoon, the world's leaders, political and business, who attend this, came up with what the World Economic Forum calls pressing issues to be discussed, issues that are key and core to fixing this problem that everyone wants fixed. They isolated 2, which will be discussed at Davos in January. The first one are the cracks in the Eurozone, which is something that we're all here discussing. The second one is even more important and more germane to what we're discussing tonight, that there is a serious global leadership crisis. And I believe by any estimation of leadership, François Hollande's speech, which was supposed to be a press conference tonight, did not show leadership.
All right, you're being a bit unfair because there were
Craig.
questions by
I
reporters.
disagree
We're
with
going to
that.
have to take a break. When we come back, though, we'll pick up on the point. This is the France 24 debate.